Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I appreciate your and the ranking member's leadership in holding this hearing. The work of the Securities and Exchange Commission is important to protecting investors, and I also want to thank each and every one of you for appearing today. It's been nearly 10 years since Alan Stanford was arrested for running the second largest Ponzi scheme in the history of the United States and the collapse of the Stanford Financial Group. Over 21,000 victims of Mr. Stanford's crimes, mostly hardworking, middle-class Americans, some of which reside in my district, have yet to be repaid in any meaningful way at all. The Stanford victims have received approximately 4.5 cents on the dollar, while the seemingly more influential or well-connected victims of the Madoff Ponzi scheme have received 75 cents on the dollar recovery. This result is really difficult for the public and me, quite frankly, to understand, and obviously it is not acceptable. Of the more than $5 billion in losses, the court-appointed receiver has recovered just $750 million. But what is more appalling than that is that nearly 50% has gone into the pocket of the receiver. If it couldn't get any worse, the receiver recently used his authority to bar individual investor claims against the banks who potentially aided and abetted the Stanford fraud. In fact, one of my constituents, Annalisa Mendez, and a dozen other victims recently wrote to the receiver and asked them if they might consider changing their course, to which the receiver did not even give them the courtesy of a reply. So I would like each of you to express to me or respond to the question of whether or not you think it's appropriate to bar investor claims in a case that has returned investors only 4.5 cents in 10 years. And we can start with Mr. Roisman and go right down the line.
So thank you for bringing this topic up. Obviously, it's a travesty is the right word. A travesty is the right word. I think if there is a means for collecting for wrongdoing, we need to ensure that that is something that people can count on to collect. If we don't have an adequate system, it creates questions and shakes our confidence not only in the financial service industry, but the oversight of it.
Okay. Ms. Peirce, Commissioner Peirce?
I'm happy to look into that issue. I'm not familiar specifically with the issue of the receiver barring investors from pursuing claims against banks. I'm happy to look into it and get back to you.
Well, thank you. Chairman?
I'll try to be brief to give my colleagues time, but I've actually spent a lot of time on this. I've met with the victim groups. I went down and met with the receiver and the examiner about 10 days ago. This is not an acceptable result at all. With respect to your specific question about the bar, there's a judgment to be made there. Minds can differ. I'm aware of the issue, and we're continuing to look at it. But rest assured, I've been fairly fully briefed on this issue.
Do I have the understanding that you're going to do more than observe it? Do you plan any engagement? Do you foresee any engagement? Do you foresee the cavalry coming to help the victims?
Let me say this. I am looking for any opportunity to help the victims get more money back faster.
Okay. We'll have another question about possible solutions you can be thinking about in the meantime. Commissioner Jackson?
Congressman, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I think Commissioner Roisman put it just right. This is a travesty. And like Commissioner Peirce, I'd be happy to look into this more deeply. Of all the things you've said, sir, what's most troubling is that you have a constituent who didn't get a response. And any American investor who's been involved with this situation is entitled to that. So I'm happy to look into that further, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Lee?
Yes, I agree, and I will say that in my experience as an enforcement attorney, I've seen firsthand the damage that's done to victims such as your constituents, and I find it extremely troubling. So I wholeheartedly support any effort we can make to return more money to those investors, and we'll work with my colleagues to do so.
Okay, my time's about to expire, so I won't get to ask the other questions, but I would appreciate it if you would let my office know of possible solutions you have in mind or might be able to come up with, or anything that you think Congress could do to empower you more to do something about this. My time is up. I yield back. Thank you, Madam Chair.